Click the bell icon to get latest videos from Ekeeda.
Hello friends, this is the second video that we are running for the first chapter. That topic is PN junction diode characteristics and working. In the last video, we have learned about the semiconductor, the types of semiconductor, operation of extrinsic and intrinsic semiconductor, and with the joint family of PN and junction type of semiconductor, we will form the one particular fantastic device that is called as PN junction diode. And as far as PN junction diode is concerned, in this particular video, we will learn complete construction and working and characteristics of PN junction diode. So let us start with the construction of PN junction diode first. See, last video lecture mein I have taken one simple rectangular box. I have named this as P type of semiconductor, isn't it? In this P type of semiconductor, I know that in the P type of semiconductor, all the majority charge carriers are nothing but the holes. So the charge carriers which are responsible for the conduction process are nothing but the holes. But don't think in that way. Even though this is P type semiconductor, I will not be having any electron as a carrier. No, I will be having few minority charge carriers as well. So we'll be having few minority charge carrier as well as majorly I will be having majority charge carrier as whole. So all these rounds are nothing but the positively charged carriers that are nothing but holes. I'll mark this points. Black points are nothing but few black points. I have mentioned only 3 amongst all these around 20-25 holes. So these 3 points are nothing but the electrons called as a minority charge carriers. So we'll do Namakaran for that. This is nothing but the electrons and these are nothing but the holes. So same story we will repeat for N type of semiconductor. For N type of semiconductor, the story is exactly opposite. So here we will be having holes as minority charge carriers and electrons as majority charge carriers. Now what will happen if I combine them? This P type is having holes, these are positively charged carriers. This N type is having electrons, these are negatively charged carriers. As far as Coulomb's law of electrostatics, we all know that positive and negative mein pyar hota hai. So what will happen? This negatively charged electrons will jump towards the positively charged holes and positively charged holes will jump towards the negatively charged electrons. So what will happen? These electrons and holes will get recombined. And what will happen after recombination? When electrons will move from N type to P type substrate, then what will happen? Here I will be getting one ion. Atom is converted into ion. This is because one electron is left from that atom, and due to that I will be having one positively charged ion, because एक electron छोड़ के चला गया, so dominance is in the form of positively charged. So what we'll get? We will be getting one extra positively charged ion. Now similarly, if this hole is having one extra electron added into that particular atom gets converted into ion, but in this particular process one extra negatively charged carrier is acquired in that particular atom, and so this atom is of the form negatively charged ion. So atom gets converted into ion, that is nothing but the negatively charged ion. Now after that, what will happen, these all electrons are also there, all the electrons will try to jump towards the p-type semiconductor, but all the electrons are not allowed to move towards the p-type semiconductor. This is because these are ions which are negatively charged carriers, and again according to Coulomb's law of electrostatics, negative negative में दुश्मनी होती है, positive positive में दुश्मनी होती है. Even if I try to move these holes, even these holes try to move themselves towards the n-type, these positively charged ions will resist themselves. So what will happen, electrons which are having sufficient amount of energy to move, to cross the barrier of these ions, only those electrons will recombine with the holes, right? So I will say that all the electrons are recombined so that I will get the positively charged ions. So as many number of positively charged ions I will be getting and negatively charged ions I will be getting depends on the number of recombinations. जितना recombination बढ़ेगा उतना ही junction में resistance बढ़ेगा, right? So at one particular point I can say that here I will be having complete wall which is increasing resistance to move from p-type to n-type for holes and n-type to p-type for electrons. Now hereafter it is not possible for electrons to move towards p-type and holes to move towards the n-type. This complete process is called as diffusion. The movement of electron from n-type to p-type and holes from p-type to n-type which forms the barrier is called as diffusion. So the process is nothing but diffusion. Mind well, the beauty of that diffusion is I just recombine the holes and electron without applying any external potential. I haven't applied any external wiring circuit over there to push themselves into one region to another region. No, it is not necessary, right? So that's why it is called as diffusion. They themselves form the movement from n-type to p-type and p-type to n-type. So this is called as diffusion. Now another process that is called as drift. People many times get confused between these two concepts. Mind well, diffusion is the process in which without any external potential electrons move from n-type to p-type and holes move from p-type to n-type to form a barrier, that is called as diffusion. When I'm going for drift is nothing but the process in which the electron moves from n-type to p-type and holes moves from p-type to n-type after applying external potential or external energy. That energy may be in the form of electrostatic energy, may be in the form of magnetic energy, may be in the form of thermal energy or any kind of energy. Generally in our syllabus, generally in our circuits, we use one particular extra potential supply so that with that positive and negative potential we will be getting the force to move electrons towards the p-type and holes towards the n-type. That process is called as diffusion. Let us come to the point that is working of this particular diode. First point mein we have discussed that how the electrons moves from one region to another region to form the diode. Now I have formed the diode. Before going towards the working, we have to know that how we will represent the diode. Is it possible to represent the diode with two boxes of n-type and p-type every time? No, it is not necessary. It is not possible as well. So what we will do, we will first go for the symbol. Symbol of diode is nothing but one arrow, that is triangle, and one line which shows that this diode is nothing but unidirectional. What do you mean by unidirectional? there is the flow of current which is possible in only one direction, and this direction is decided by this arrow represents direction of current, and this vertical line represents the junction or barrier which is getting formed with the diffusion process. So whatever formation of this device is called as p-n junction diode. So let us move towards the process of working. So this is how the diode is getting formed after the process of diffusion. Now what will happen with the internal potential with this particular junction of the diode? This junction is having one potential difference. This is because this is of negatively charged ions, this is of positively charged ions, so there will be a fixed potential difference between the junction, in between the junction from n type to p type. So whatever potential I will be getting, that is called as junction potential. So this is denoted by Vd. Vd is called as junction potential. This is also called as barrier potential, or it is also called as, because if we have this kind of potential difference, then and only then it is possible to form a barrier between the electrons in the n type and holes in the p type. Now we will form the working in the form of drift operation. In the drift operation, we will be having two possible operation. One is called as forward bias and another is called as reverse bias. Again we will repeat this particular circuit. Okay, this is a simple diode. Okay, now with this we will form the external circuit such that I will get the external force for the electrons to move towards the p-type or holes to move towards n-type. As we have learned in prerequisite session, what are the DC and AC sources? Here we have applied DC source. So this DC source represents that this is my negative potential and this is my positive potential of battery V. So let us start with the operation. If I am talking about this negative terminal of battery is connected to N type and positive terminal of battery is connected to P type, what will happen? According to electrostatics law, Coulomb's law of electrostatics, the negative negative के बीच में दुश्मनी होती है. So we can say that the electrons will not enter into the negative part of the battery. Rather than that, these electrons will move away from that negative potential. That means these electrons will try to move towards the junction, right? So electrons will get force to move towards the junction. The amount of energy the electrons will get to cross that particular barrier, and again it will recombine with the holes. But what will happen if I say that these electrons will recombine with the holes? Again, another ion will get formed. This is not so. This is because this positively charged carrier, that is hole, are moving towards the n-type as well. So that's why I am saying that if electrons are moving here, we are getting attracted towards this positive terminal of battery, so current will move, electrons will move towards this particular direction. Electrons will move in this particular direction and the holes will move in this particular direction. Now, what is hole? Holes are nothing but the deficiency of electron, empty chair, and when it gets filled with the electron, that process is called as recombination. Okay, let's start the operation. This operation is called as forward bias. This is because the diode ka operation and symbol is concerned. This is nothing but the symbol of diode, where this is nothing but the P type semiconductor and this is nothing but the n type semiconductor. This is called as anode and this is called as cathode. Current will flow from anode to cathode as same as that of the direction of holes and opposite to the direction of conventional flow of the electron. So the conventional flow of current is exactly opposite to the flow of electron. So that's why this is called as forward bias. Here I have kept my DC voltage constant. So whatever amount of energy electrons gains and move towards the P channel and move towards the P type, that much amount of energy will get and will stop this operation, right? But if I change this particular DC voltage towards the positive side, then this force will increase and increase and increase and the electron velocity will increase. More number of electrons will cross the barrier. If more number of electrons crosses the barrier, then I can say that the current which forming in this particular circuit will increase. So as V increases, the flow of electron, number of electrons passing through the junction increases. This increment of current is exponentially. In the next video, we will clearly mention how that current increases exponentially mathematically as well. So as far as forward bias is concerned, I will get to know that if voltage increases, current will increase exponentially due to the fact that electrostatic force of attraction and repulsion will lead electrons to move from n type to p type and holes to move from p type to n type. Exactly ulta operation we will learn in the next process, that is called as reversed bias. Now in this process we will just apply the reverse polarity voltage supply. If you apply positive of battery towards the n type, then what will happen? Just analyze by using electrostatics force of attraction and repulsion. If we say this is positively charged terminal of battery which is connected to n type of semiconductor and p type of semiconductor is connected to negative, what will happen? Attractive force will get developed. Now we can say these electrons will move towards the electron movements is towards the positive type of battery and holes movement is towards the negative type of battery, right? Then what will happen? जैसे ही होल्स p टाइप से बाहर निकलते हैं, जैसे ही इलेक्ट्रॉन्स n टाइप से बाहर निकलते हैं, atom will get converted into ions. So what will happen as the electrons are moving from n type to positive terminal of battery and holes from p type to negative terminal of battery, then I can say that this will get converted into ions. So what we have observed? We have observed that atoms are converted into positive and negatively charged ions in n-type and p-type semiconductor respectively in the construction of diode, right? So what will happen? This width will get increased. If width increases, then can I say that this potential will get increased? Then the resistance, which is nothing but the resistive power to resist the electrons to move from n-type to p-type, is increasing. So we can say the VR resistor across this junction increases, VD increases if we increase the value of this external potential power supply. If V increases, then VR increases, this VD increases. We can also say that this distance increases is proportional with the VD. Now what will happen? Can I say that there will not be any flow of current? Yes, there will not be any flow of current ideally, but don't neglect all the minority charge carrier I have represented. See this minority charge carriers, electron, electron and electron. I have connected this p-type to negatively charged terminal of power supply and positively charged is connected to n-type. n-type में मेरे पास holes है as minority charge carriers. Now this minority charge carrier is responsible for this conduction process under the reverse bias operation. Now in the reverse bias operation, these minority charge carriers, what will happen? This will try to enter into the junction barrier. If they get sufficient amount of energy to break the covalent bond, then obviously this will jump towards the n-type, and if electrons in the p-type move towards the n-type, then flow of electron will be from here. Then flow of minority charge electrons will be from here. EM is nothing but the minority charge electrons. So electrons will move from p-type to n-type, and I can say that as far as this diode symbol is concerned, we will say this is p-type, this is n-type. If electrons are moving from p-type to n-type, minority charge carrier electrons are moving from p-type to n-type, then conventional current will flow from n-type to p-type. But mind well, as these minority charge carriers are very less in numbers, so the movement and number of electrons passing through the junction are very less. If these numbers are very less as compared to majority charge carriers, then whatever current I will be getting will be very less, but in opposite direction. So current will move in opposite direction, and that is called as reverse saturation current, that is denoted by IO. Current will move in this particular direction. I will represent this as IO, that is called as reverse saturation current. So this is how the operation of reverse bias is. Mind well, in forward bias we will get maximum amount of current which is high in magnitude, and in reverse bias operation we will get very less amount of current, that too is flowing in exactly opposite direction from cathode to anode. In forward bias, we'll be getting current from anode to cathode. So this is how we have learned the working construction of PN junction diode. In the next few videos, we will learn the characteristics of diode and the numericals as well. So stay tuned for that. We'll learn more and more EDC along with Ekeeda videos. Subscribe this channel. Thank you.